We were just talking about the Leafs crease, and maybe we can start this conversation there. Of course, getting closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. How do you feel about Toronto's crease? Obviously, Ilya Samsonov has been a remarkable story so far in the last little while.
Well, it's better than having a whole bunch of questions, I would have to say. And, I mean, Hutz, you being from Thunder Bay, you probably grew up, I'm not sure if you grew up a Leaf fan or not. I grew up in Ottawa where we didn't have an NHL team at the time, so I was an Ottawa 67s fan, but I was a Montreal Canadiens fan. But when I grew up, I always thought of like as I grew up, the Leafs, there was always something going on. There was always a question mark. There's always pressure. There's always haven't won since 67. And anytime a goaltender's gone in there, whether it be even Freddie Anderson played well there, Campbell played well there for short spurts, and but still, it's almost like when I was thinking about the Red Wings when they went through the shovel day off, and they had a whole bunch of goaltenders that it just didn't work, and they didn't win, and the pressure was always on the goalie, no matter what happened in front of them, no matter how they played, no matter how they defended, it was always, oh, that's a bad goal, oh, that's a bad goal, and it was an easy crutch to blame, in my opinion, anyway. I think shore up the D, shore up the system, take care of 5-on-5 D zone coverage, and your goaltenders are going to look a whole lot better. But in saying that, I've watched Samsonov, and I listened to you earlier about that, Hutz, as well. Like, it's great that he's going well because, Wall came in last year, and he did play well when Samsonov got injured. I thought last year, and there were many times breaking down the video because I did a couple of series of the Leafs, before he got hurt, I thought there were areas that the other teams were exploiting. And Hutz, maybe you can describe this better, but you see the same goalie in a 7-game series. You're seeing the video. You're seeing those clips. You're seeing what's weak. Where do we want to pound? What do we want to do? Do we want to get down low and cycle and wrap jam plays, or can he get beat on the rush? And I thought last year he lost his net an awful lot down low, Hutz. I thought, whether or not he's got a technique that I don't know about, going side to side or pushing off, his outside leg ended up a lot outside the post. And that's where the goals that he gave up, they weren't clean plays. They were the ones that were just somehow they bounced off somebody. Somehow they went in the net. And I think that's the area that he maybe has improved on the most, that I haven't seen the same deficiency maybe as I saw last year late in the year.
Yeah, Penger, I couldn't agree more too. I touched on that a lot, just staying within themselves. And something we saw firsthand, I think, struggles when, I had a great season in St. Louis when Jakey had struggled a bit, Jake Allen, and he redefined himself. And he went into that playoffs against Minnesota. I think it might have been the best goalie performance I've ever seen in a playoff after a tough struggle. Yeah. So there is that aspect of the mental side that these goalies deal with. And for me, Panger, to move on from the goalies, obviously I could talk goalies all day here, but this Maple Leafs team has really taken a step forward here. I think they're playing better hockey as of late. And, we're going to, obviously, it looks like they're going to be a Florida matchup, but what do you see in this Leafs team to give fans hope, moving into the playoffs? Because I think, people are scarred by the past by this Maple Leafs team.
Yeah, they are. Last year, I was lucky enough, I got to do that series. And the last time they won a playoff series, Hutch, you'll love this, but in 2004. And Steve Levy and I covered the game nationally on ESPN. So that was Game 7. I believe it was Nieuwendyk going down the left side, scored on Patrick Lalime, if I'm not mistaken. And then they hadn't won since last year. So I was astonished, Hutz. I got to tell you, I was like, wait a second. The last series they won, I did it way back when. I almost had hair back then. So what's the difference now besides the pressure of winning? Well, I think last year winning a round playoff series is big. I think they added a little bit this year, whether it be Benoit on the back end. I think that has helped them a little bit. I think getting more depth on the third and fourth lines, like last year, they loaded up with Lafferty. When you added Luke Shen and you added Ryan O'Reilly, you added culture. You added guys that just wanted to talk hockey. They actually, they went out for team dinners before, which from what I understand, that didn't happen a whole lot in the playoffs. So, I mean, there was a camaraderie that they had. I think that's going to help them this year. Max is playing real well. Joel Edmondson on the back end, Hutch, you know him real well. That's an element to their game that I didn't think they had as well. Tyler Bertuzzi, I mean, his numbers show that when the heat is on, when the playoffs are on, he's greasy enough to get to the front of that and score some goals, almost like Connor Garland last night. Not the biggest guy, but get to the crease and pound some loose pucks in, and that's what he did. That's what he ends up doing real well. And so, I think I'd be hopeful if I'm them. You're getting a guy like Mitch Marner that hasn't played for a while. Now you're getting an added player. I don't know. Ryan Reeves knows his role as well. It's a different team, and I think they've got probably a lot to prove. And it's not just their top guys, but I guess at the end of the day, I'm going to ramble on here, but at the end of the day, if the top guys don't outperform the other top guys, then you probably don't have much of a chance unless your goaltender is the first star every game. But no, I like the Leafs, and I like where they're I kind of like where they're trending right now and how they're playing.
Identity, I think, is a big word to use with this Maple Leafs team, and that's been a big story for me the last little while. That's why they've gone on this run since the whole Ridley Griggs situation, if you want to date it back to that. But it almost feels like they need like that Bobrovsky type run from whoever in between the pipes, whether it's Samsonov, whether it's Wool, whether it's Jones. Like, obviously, goaltending is so big. It really hasn't been a story in this market. It's been the lack of production on the power play and depth scoring and the big boys. But specifically to that matchup against Florida, obviously in the back of their minds is Bobrovsky. Obviously in the back of their minds is that loss last year. But how do you think they stack up this time around to a Florida team?
Well, I mean, sure enough, Bobrovsky was real good in that second round. But I might be completely wrong here. But there was a lot of deep breaths after that first playoff win in a long time, and now you got to get ready for the next one. And I'm not saying that they weren't well prepared or they didn't have the same let's go or that same. It was almost like, hey, we won that playoff series, and Florida Panthers, I think they fed off that, and they got them into scrums, and they did what they do best. They forechecked hard, they got on them hard, and certainly the goaltender was better. And at that point, but when you lose, that quickly in a series, that's also demoralizing. That should be the motivation for me for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Say one series, that's not the Stanley Cup. You got to win 4 of them to get back to winning the Stanley Cup, and so maybe they're a stronger team that way mentally, Huts. This year in going into it, knowing that last year just wasn't good enough. When they saw what the Florida Panthers did to get to the final and how they romped through Toronto, they romped through Carolina, and they did get, they got pounded obviously in the final. They just didn't have the same giddy up and go, and they were injured a little bit, but it just goes to show you how much more mental fortitude you're going to need to go all 4 rounds.
Yeah, I agree too, Penger. When you called that game, the game the Leafs got eliminated by the Panthers, me and my old man were at it. We were texting each other, talking about it as it went down. Braden Shen was there watching it. And it's a fun thing for Toronto to be playing well. And another thing that it's hard not to bypass right now is what Austin Matthews is doing. He's got 65 goals. Yep. He's on the verge of getting 70. Do you put him getting to 70 and also, is he someone that if he gets to 70, is he in the Hart conversation? I know he is, but there's obviously been a lot of storylines this year with the Art Ross and with everything going down. How do you feel about Matthews this year, Penger?
It's a great conversation. And I was just in Tampa Bay, Huts, and John Cooper's like, how do you not look at Kucherov, with everything that's going on? Then you go to Edmonton and you've got Connor and obviously I think of one guy right now, if they get in the playoffs, I think a horse from behind is going to bypass them all. If I were a writer, who's the Hart Trophy winner of the NHL if they get into the playoffs? Is it not Sidney Crosby? I know I'm throwing another name right out there, and I wouldn't have, but I can't believe that they're in the race right now. I mean, I can't believe that they put themselves in that spot. And what better player to represent the Hart Trophy than a guy that took a team that was nowhere, all the moves being made. Never thought that the Pittsburgh Penguins were there. Now let's say they don't get in, and it's not Sidney Crosby. Then then jeepers. For me, then that's a real tough one. You get to 70 goals, it's unbelievable. Can there be an Art Ross Trophy winner, a Hart Trophy winner, and a Rocket Richard Trophy winner, and all be different? We haven't had that in a long time, and it's possible. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Gretz won the Hart Trophy in 88-89, his first year in LA, but Mario had more points that year, and it was one of the first times that you didn't see them both end up together on the dance floor at the very end, receiving the awards. So I'm just wondering out there if there might be 2 different winners.
Oh, it's going to be so tough to vote on this because, again, I think you can make 5 strong cases for players. I would throw Crosby into that conversation. Yeah. McDavid, the season he's having, Kucherov, McKinnon, Matthews, even Pasternak, Panarin. It's just that type of year. But I wanted to ask you about somebody you're covering on a daily basis. I think this is so awesome and so cool. And it was unfortunate to see you leave St. Louis, but I mean, who wouldn't go in Chicago, what they're putting together right now, obviously with Conor Bedard. Always looking for that next one in hockey. Who could be the next Austin Matthews in terms of goal scoring? Can it be Conor Bedard?
Wow, that's a lot to throw on his shoulders. I mean, there's, he's a different player. He's not as big, doesn't skate the same way, doesn't bump people off the same way, but man, he's got great hockey sense, and he's a better passer than I thought he was when I first saw him in training camp and saw what he had done before. He loves making plays. Probably could shoot it even more than he shoots it, to be quite honest with you. There's many games where I'm like, man, he could have 5 or 6 more shots on goal, but he's not that kind of guy. He doesn't want to be the selfish guy that keeps firing pucks. And so he wants to make a play, wants his line mates to be better as well. I think he's honestly, I hate to say this, he's Conor Bedard. I've been trying to find something with Sidney Crosby. Not really. I've been trying to find something with with Joe Sakic and an Yzerman, and you go down the list. I mean, he's not. I mean, Patrick Kane's a way different player than what he is. So it's different. The shot of Austin Matthews, he's tenacious. Maybe he's more tenacious than I thought he was too. He doesn't mind getting in there and getting involved, and he doesn't mind giving it back as well. He's good that way, but he's not cocky. He's just really respectful of the league. He knows the league. He understands the history, and he also understands he's an ambassador to the game of hockey. And you should see this guy on the road as an 18-year-old. He totally gets it. There are kids every rink you go to, every bus you get off of. There's number 98 Bedard sweaters, and he sees it out of the corner of his eye, and he signs them all the time, and he always does the right thing. So he's special, whether it's off the ice or obviously on the ice.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.